Hello, my name is
Hello.
Vasilis. In the EU, we often criticize US for not ratifying the Kyoto Protocol. What is the stand of California towards that?
Well, we're past the Kyoto Protocol now, so it's all about post 2012 negotiations. But it was a tragedy when Al Gore was at the Kyoto Convention and said and negotiated its provisions and came home, and the U.S. Senate wouldn't ratify it. There were 100 reasons not to, and only one to do it, which was, well, two, that the vice president and president thought it was a good idea, and the scientists thought it was important. But the U.S. people weren't prepared, and the U.S. politicians weren't prepared, and we're still in that stage of gathering critical mass so that the U.S. can act. Nothing's going to happen this year. The meeting in Washington is not going to produce any change. We need a new president. Whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, we need a fresh piece of paper. And I think we also need some more accidents and catastrophes to hit Americans upside the head so that they also feel threatened. It's not just poor people in Louisiana, it's them. All over the country, it's them.
Can I ask a question just about accidents? I'm a little skeptical about that. I mean, haven't we had our fair share of climate-related catastrophes like Katrina? And I think that in the U.S., people are very willing to dismiss accidents as acts of God, for example. And so we don't see the change. We don't see it, perhaps our responsibility for the climate. How do you get people to see that?
The problem is the media, and that they believe in point, counterpoint. And so while there's 1,000 people, 1 million people who will tell you it's climate related, they find the one guy, the kooky guy with the white hair going like this, who says that it's not, that it's a farce, that the climate's changed since the dinosaurs, and this is just another example. And so Americans are misled. And Americans are inherently skeptical of intellectuals, of scientists, of elitists, of government. And so if there's someone to cast doubt, they'll believe the person casting doubt. That's just the way Americans are. That's their personalities right away. And we're going to hit wall after wall after wall. And we already hit one this summer where our legislature and our governor argued about early action measures because the governor favors markets, he favors cap and trade, and he wants to lead with that. He says he knows we'll do regulations, but if we don't talk about cap and trade, business will freak out and leave the table. So he emphasizes it all the time. But the legislature wants regulations, they're Democrats. Regulate now, the world's on fire, so they fought, and the air board got caught in the middle, and the chairman was fired, and then I resigned in protest, and now there's a new, more powerful chair, and she's setting up for the next fight, which will be later this fall.
Hello, my name is Sabino. I'd like to ask a question about a subject that has not been talked about tonight and is usually left out when talking about climate change, and that is livestock farming. Recently, the FAO, well, it's not as recently anymore, it's 2006, the FAO published a report, a very long and serious one, about the impact of livestock farming on the climate change. And it came out that it's even worse than the whole of the transport sector, with 18% of climate, of greenhouse gas emissions. So I was wondering whether there's any plans in the US or in the European Commission to take this subject on board, maybe trying to convince people to eat maybe a little bit less meat, and also to inform better about the impact of factory farming, which has a dire energy balance.
Is my mic on? There are a lot of things that we understand to be true about climate change that we don't talk about because it's too early in the process, and it would alienate the people that we need to support the big building blocks, the building of windmills and the changing of fuel quality and the changing of cars. And if while you're trying to get United States citizens to take seriously climate change and even think about people in other countries, and you said it in the same breath, and would you please stop eating meat, which doctors have been telling them to do for years, and would you please stop flying, you know, would you please buy 2 pairs of shoes instead of 10? You would turn the people off you're trying to bring in. So I think that it's strategic how to talk about it, and different organizations can carry the message better than government. It sounds too much like a nanny state, a police state coming from us. But NGOs can talk about it, novelists can talk about it, editorial writers in the paper can talk about it and change people without stopping momentum toward big governmental actions. I mean, that's what I think. It's absolutely true. I think we could regulate people more. I honestly do. I think that there was some interesting study and polling done in the United States that if you ask someone to stop doing something harmful, they won't comply, but if you make it impossible for them, they want you to save them from themselves. So Americans understand SUVs are a bad thing, but they're right there, so they're going to buy them. If they went away, they wouldn't buy them. If they became a lot more expensive, they would buy fewer of them. If all of them had to be built on car chassis instead of truck chassis, they would all save more fuel. If they had to be hybridized, dieselized, you know, Americans would get used to it. It would be $3,000 more, $4,000 more. If bottled water disappeared, you'd fill up a tap, you know, you'd find something else to drink. So, we can't, the thing that voters react violently to is a huge price jump in a necessary item like electricity bill in their house, where they can't overnight consume 25% less electricity and offset a 25% price hike. And then you get a voter revolt and politicians out of office and all this sort of stuff. But there's a lot you can do with regulations, just taking certain things away. They're gone. And everybody gets on with their lives.
Australia has plans to ban, inefficient light bulbs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they do. And then, plasma TVs, which, rich people are buying, they consume 5 times more electricity than a regular TV.
And LCDs use less.
Yeah.
That's my point. If you tell people that an LCD uses less, you have advertising saying this uses less electricity, and people, the majority of people may not know.
Right.
Because you need a highly educated public to know what is good, less good, and bad for the environment. So you cannot blame people for that. But I would rather blame advertising of cars, where you see this big SUV in the desert, giving you an illusion of freedom and excitement, which in fact is in a center or in a city like Brussels, and this is a standard city in the world and Europe. I mean, what can you do with your SUV? You just line up in the traffic queue, but people buy the SUV, and so I think advertising is something I think we have to address, and we are now discussing a moral code, a voluntary code with the car manufacturers, because we keep saying
that's ridiculous. Just regulate them.
But for that you need a majority. And I'm going to get my majority. So as long as I'm not sure about the majority, then I have to go for a voluntary code.
So we'd like to thank all of our speakers for coming, also for Ms. Witherspoon for coming all the way from California on a flight, which of course she couldn't avoid. She couldn't avoid. But I'm sure that she's doing a lot of other action in her life, so that she will make up for what she's been doing here. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, the U.S. mission to the European Union, and we invite you all to look for our continual monthly debates and stick around, keep on chatting. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.